everybody would agree, despite the differences that people have, everyone would agree on the importance of taking care of this fantastic place. So, yeah, the big reason why I'm running is essentially the people that came before I did to this area and who've looked after it in the past have kept it in fantastic condition. They've kept an unspoilt landscape. They've kept distinctive small towns that still have a villagey character, unspoilt, unpolished, uncomplicated character. Those are all things that I feel strongly about and that I want to try and protect for future generations, for my own kids, for other people's kids and other families, and for the people who come down here from Melbourne and from all over the world. So as far as my priorities are concerned, that unspoiledness, I think, is a really high priority. It's at the heart of why we live here. It's at the heart of the lifestyle that we all enjoy. It's at the heart of why people visit, which drives our visitor economy. And I think that given the pressures from factors like climate change, suburban development in the Geelong Surf Coast corridor, tourism development, these things have a big bearing on the place that we love, and we need some strong leadership to take care of it. We also need leaders who are prepared to take the existing strategic plans and stand by them, stand strongly by them.
Okay, thank you very much, Mike. We'll move to the next candidate now, Liz Wood. Liz, are you there? You've got to unmute yourself.
Sorry, nervous.
No, you're right. From the top. Welcome.
Thanks very much, Mitchell, and thanks very much for this opportunity to speak to the community. I'm a local candidate and I'm independent from Aireys Inlet, and I've lived here for more than 20 years. I've worked extensively in state and local government and have the experience, energy and commitment to be an effective councillor. I live on the Surf Coast like all of you. I love the beach. I love the bush. The listeners and other candidates feel exactly the same. And I love being part of this community. I love the small town. I love knowing and looking out for neighbours, being close to nature, being able to volunteer with other community members. And I guess the reason I'm running for council is that I feel very passionately that we have reached a tipping point, that we need change for the sake of our future and for the sake of future generations. I don't believe we can continue to have business as usual. We must do things differently. Our environment needs far greater priority. We need to assess developments and protect our environment and understand the environmental impacts of council's decisions. I've listened to the community talk about this, and they agree on these points. And the other thing that they agree on is that we must have sustainable tourism. There's no doubt about it. We live on one of the most attractive parts of Victoria's coastline. In fact, Australia's coastline, I'd say. And the sort of tourism we've been experiencing is not serving us well. And I think it's time to slow down our visitors and encourage them to stay and have quality experiences on the coast rather than the unsustainable volume of the coach culture that we currently experience. So I think my council experience, I've had 15 years working in local government. I understand the planning scheme very well, and I think I can well apply my skills and make good decisions for our community.
Liz, thank you very much. The next candidate on the list is Libby Stapleton.
Thanks, Mitchell. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which I work and live, which for me is the Wadawurrung people, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. My name's Libby Stapleton, and I would like to be your councillor on the Surf Coast Shire Council. My vision is to nurture a community where people and environment come first. Our low-key coastal village character is protected, and locals have a real opportunity to participate in transparent decision-making. I will respect those who have come before us, engage with those who live here now, and plan for those who will inherit the responsibilities of our future. And that's a big responsibility to take on, but I believe I have the skills and the experience to be a strong voice at the council table. I've lived in the community for 18 years. In that time, I've raised 3 children who have gone through childcare, Anglesea Kinder, Aries Inlet Primary School. Needless to say, I've been immersed in the fabric of community life in those settings. I've sat on committees, parents and friends, school council, and I've been a really strong advocate for the values that are important to our community. I volunteer extensively. I was the MC for the Aries Inlet Open Mic for 10 years. I'm a stage manager for Anglesea Sound Doctor. I edit the Anglesea News Angle, which I really love. I operate the Aries Inlet Market, and I'm an actor and performer with Anglesea Performing Arts. So I really have immersed myself in community life. That's just one part of the picture, because I know that to be an effective councillor, you need to have the skills to sit at the council table and advocate for what's really important to our community. And as a qualified public relations practitioner, I bring real skill in that area, and I know I can be an effective listener. I'm very well connected to the community, and I will be someone that can take our community needs and advocate strongly at council for what's most important to us. I'm also an outdoor adventure instructor, and that has given me great respect for our local environment. And it's
Libby, unfortunately, we've just gone to 2.5 minutes, so we'll just pause you for a second. You can come back in future answers if you want to extend further. We'll go over now to the next candidate, which is Raylene Fordham.
Thank you, Mitch. Thanks, Libby, for the welcome to country too. Hi, listeners. Hi, fellow candidates. Really pleased to be here again. I was here last year with the by-election with Tony, and it was a really good experience. So I hope you have fun today, and I hope that people get to learn a little bit more about us. Why? I guess that's why we're here. Well, for me, it's just an extension of what I already do. You know, for the last decade, I've been involved in community life in every aspect. I am a little small business owner here in Anglesea, and so I've been involved with the business groups, I've been involved with the community, I've sat on committees, and I think, you know, every day I walk the walk in this town. You know, a real key achievement of mine, something that I'm really proud of, was the actual establishment of the Anglesea Community Network. It was probably about 5 years ago that there was a group of community members that attended a council function about how we could live better into our older years. And what we realised at that function was that there was this real need in the Anglesea community to connect. And we thought, well, how can we do that? How can we be better connected? You know, we have 50 different service groups, organisations and clubs. How can we be better connected? And what we learned through having that conversation for 2 years is that actually through being better connected, we're a more resilient community. So, you know, we've been on this path, been on this journey. Even recently, we had a digital community forum, and the top key topic that came out was this connection, this need of the community to want to connect. So it was about, you know, it was about meaningful connection. It was about cross connection, so across the group. And I hear this every day in my community when I walk. People will walk down my driveway when they could before COVID and say, Raylene, I've got this idea, or I want to achieve this. How do I go about it? And so, you know, that's what I do. My role is to connect people, to put them together, to form collaborations, to deliver outcomes for the community. When I think about the role of a councillor, this is a vital role, as it keeps, we need to keep the community informed, and we need to make sure that even now in our community life, whether it's being elected or not, we continue to engage, listen and remain open for our community, as we are all community people. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Raylene. And last of all, the sitting councillor, Tony Revell. Thanks, Mitchell. Thanks for this opportunity. Yes, I'm an Anglesea resident and current councillor. Within this community, I'm a CFA operational firefighter and member of the Anglesea Brigade management team. And wearing a completely different hat, I'm also president of the Anglesea Community Rock Choir, amongst other things I get involved with. But most importantly, I guess I'm independent. I'm not associated with any political party or lobby group, so I like to think I represent the community interests generally and listen to the community generally. My background prior to council work has been in the commercial world, worked at senior management levels, and in my time on council and moving forward, I look to bring those skills to this councillor role. Now, I think most importantly, it's what do I stand for? And I stand on a platform of what I describe as being sensibly progressive, and that's one that balances the environmental issues alongside the social issues and the economic needs, and it is very much a balancing situation. In terms of the environment, of course, we've got a magnificent natural environment that has to be protected for future generations. That it must be protected. We also have, as has been mentioned by some of the other candidates here, a unique constructed environment, because that goes to the character of our towns. And Anglesea and Aries Inlet are unique coastal towns, and we want them to remain that way. So very important that the progress and development respects that. From a social perspective, of course, COVID is presenting us with probably the most significant challenge since Ash Wednesday in this region, and the leadership within council needs to understand that and know how to respond appropriately. And interestingly, 50% or more than 50% of our businesses within this area are reliant on JobKeeper to survive at the moment, which gets me on to the economic perspective. And we need a financially prosperous local economy, one that's going to support our businesses. And of course, with the visit economy being the driver of that, we must have the appropriate tourism-related actions to meet that challenge. So I stand on that platform that recognises those three criteria and drive my decision making.
Okay. Tony, thank you very much, and thank you to everyone for bearing with us. This is all very new to everyone, I think, doing one of these on Zoom, where in the past we've done these in person. But we'll move to questions which have been submitted by the listeners now, and it's not too late to submit your question. You can still go to the Pulse website and do that. But we've had a lot of questions, as you might expect, about the Eden project. So the first question we've got is from Helen and Richard in Anglesea, and they say, we're very interested in your position on the Eden project. In principle, are you supportive or against the project? And listed first is Raylene Fordham.
Okay, so look, I know with the Eden project that there are certainly some members of the community that support it. There are those members that probably have a fear of it, and there are some that are undecided. But what I do know is that for many people in our community, we're worried about climate change. We're worried about deforestation. We're worried about ocean and river health. And we're worried about our overall impact on our environment. In order to address these, we need a range of highly engaging educational opportunities that will help to inform people about what we can and what we must do to survive as a planet and a species. So when I think about Eden, this is what I hear. I hear plans for a world-class environmental education and research facility. I hear plans for a cultural education facility that connects us with our oldest living culture on the planet. I don't hear plans for a dream world. I don't hear plans for a movie world. I hear about a facility that can make a difference to the things that I hold dear. And how could I not consider that? But, being open to discussion is really important, being open to those considerations of community, staying engaged, being informed, being consulted. There are issues. People have raised issues. We know what they are. There's the 10 key issues. But the biggest issues are things like traffic management, volume, interaction of a facility like that with town, in addition to, what kind of visitor numbers are there going to be? Who will interact with who? Will they interact in a meaningful way with the area and the region? Will they come? Will they stay? Will they play? Will they learn? And I really hope that we have an opportunity through a potential opportunity with Eden, so it's not a definite in any way, shape or form, but something like that we build ambassadors for the future, as in environmental ambassadors that understand. So I know through chaos, kids adventure outdoors, but that's what we did with the kids. You know, they came to town, they interacted with nature, they had fun, and they went away being really committed to what it is to protect that and to be aware of that. So I think they're the things I think of when I think of Eden.
Thank you, Raylene. Next question, next candidate is Liz Wood.
Thanks, Mitchell. Well, interestingly, Eden in the Bible refers to an earthly paradise. And I think we already have an earthly paradise right here. And Eden promises, I guess, they suggest some kind of paradise. I've been obviously on the campaign trail listening to the community, and Eden is absolutely divisive. You've got people on both sides of the argument feeling really passionate about this, and I think it's a real shame that this project has been so divisive for the community, because it's not a healthy thing. I've heard people speak about the positive opportunities of Eden, that it could deliver an amazing economic boost to the Anglesea economy, and it's a very persuasive argument. I've also heard about people's concerns about the environmental and social impacts of Eden. And people also talk about the fact that there are many unanswered questions. Where does the water come from? How will the traffic be managed? 5,000 extra visitors a day. What I need to assure people is that as a sitting councillor, your questions deserve to be answered. Any outstanding questions need to be rigorously explored, and that information made available. The process must be transparent. And my job as councillor is not to have a view right here and now. My view as councillor would be to ensure that people have that information available to them, and for me to represent their views. I need to listen and advocate for the community. The other important thing in closing is thinking about what has happened in Eden, Cornwall. They've announced recently £7 million loss, and 169 staff have been laid off. So there's a key question as to whether that investment, given COVID and the economic crisis we're currently experiencing, will that investment be coming forward for Eden? Massive questions, long way to go.
Liz, thank you very much. Up next is Mike Bodsworth.
Thanks, Mitchell, and thanks, Raylene and Liz, for really good answers, a good level of discussion. So I've been fairly vocal at times about the Eden proposal, and also about the underpinning Anglesea Futures land use framework, which was developed by the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning over the past several years. I'm really interested in this topic. I'm really interested in the Alcoa land and the opportunities that it raises. And so I've participated in almost every meeting, bar a few, since over the past few years since this process got going, as have other people, lots of other people in the community. What I've seen over that time and leading up to even the present day is a lot of really important questions. So Eden particularly, I agree with Raylene and Liz when they say that it has the potential to be divisive. Eden has really brought out a lot of differing opinions. And I think one thing that's missing at the moment is some solid evidence around the assumptions that underpin Eden. For example, the Eden proponents at one stage were talking a lot about how Anglesea areas, the Anglesea ward area, was struggling and was in need of the kind of stimulus that the Eden project could bring. And I absolutely refute that. I don't think that's an accurate assumption at all. The vital signs of our area with regard to unemployment, which is half the state average, level of new families coming into town, which is gradually ticking upwards. The vital signs and statistics for our area are really strong. We already have tens of thousands of young people coming to Anglesea school camps and the Aries Inlet school camps every year, and leaving us after having a fantastic time with much of the same environmental knowledge and outdoor experiences that Eden's offering, but in ways that don't involve traffic. They get dropped off by bus, they get picked up by bus, and in between they're generally walking and riding bikes. So my big feeling about Eden is probably that the scale is too big. That's why at the moment I'm sitting more on the opposing side of the fence, but I'm very happy to be talked into it if those important issues are satisfactorily handled.
Thank you, Mike. That's time, unfortunately. But up next, Libby Stapleton.
Thanks, Mitchell. And thanks to Liz and Raylene and Mike for your really valuable contributions there. Look, until we get a plan on Eden, I think it would be irresponsible for any candidate or councillor to come out with a fixed position on it. And I know that can be really frustrating for the community when they see it as, and it is, a really significant issue in our local community. But everyone needs to remember at the moment that it is just a concept, and until we get something more specific, it's really hard for any candidate to be put in a position where people are asking, you know, what's your view on Eden? Is it yes or is it no? And for something that's so complex and that needs so much investigation, it's not realistic to kind of expect at this stage for candidates to have a fixed position on it. I'm certainly someone that is passionate about engaging with community and talking to people, and I've been doing a lot of that over the last few weeks. And like the other candidates have said, it's clear that it's really divisive, or it has the potential to be really divisive, but I don't think it needs to be. I think that as a community, we probably have a lot more in common than what we give ourselves credit for. And this is an opportunity for us to find, I guess, the things that we have in common rather than creating more division and debate around it until we have a plan. And when we have that plan, then let's bring our community leaders together and let's really explore what the risks are, what the benefits are. You know, what do we risk by saying no? And what do we risk by saying yes? You know, that's a really important question, because I know people are passionate about protecting our environment, and I hear that people see the opportunity for jobs and employment, but there is a really complex set of questions that need to be asked so that we can make good decisions that are evidence-based and that accurately weigh up the risk and benefits.
Libby, that's time. Sorry. We'll go to Tony now.
Thanks, Mitchell. Yeah, look, when we're talking about Eden, we've got two things here to consider. We've got the concept and we've got the plan. Now, with the plan we haven't seen, pretty obviously, and it's unclear whether or not the state government or the council will be the planning authority. But putting that to one side, in terms of the concept, what we're evaluating here is the opportunity to develop a disused industrial site, and the alternative for that would be, you know, some decades of unusable space. What the concept is presenting is to transform this site into an ecotourism destination and build on the sort of extensive rehabilitation work that Alcoa have already undertaken. So, you know, and it is in terms of the concept, it's kind of an intersection of art and science and education with the environment. It's an environmentally themed tourist attraction. Clearly, there is a positive impact on Anglesea and the surrounding areas through the visitor economy, but you know, we haven't seen sufficient detail yet in terms of the plan. And of course, if the state government doesn't determine that sufficient water can be made available, it may not proceed. But you know, quite clearly, the issues that have come out from, you know, a lot of consultation and community forums and the other things settle around traffic management of and the integration of Eden within the Anglesea community. And in terms of traffic management, you know, they are talking of 700,000 visitors a year. We're not talking about 600,000 or 700,000 new cars, additional cars a year, because this is a program that is aimed at encouraging people to spend more time and get more deeply involved in our environment. So I think that's quite positive. In terms of the integration of Eden with Anglesea, yes, we have to make sure that that they both add to each other. We most certainly don't want Eden detracting from the Anglesea environment and what we have here. So whilst I support the concept, those two significant issues are something that will need to satisfy me at a more detailed and more advanced
Tony,
planning
thank
stage.
you very much. That's time. We'll move on to our next question now, which has come in from Michael. And Michael says, what would you like to see happen to Bells Beach if first is Mike Bodsworth? Mike, you might just need to unmute yourself.
Sorry, I missed you a little bit, Mitchell. Was the question, what would you like to happen to Bells Beach?
Correct, yes. Go ahead.
Well, in a nutshell, I'd like to see nothing happen to Bells Beach. The number one priority at Bells Beach is to preserve Bells Beach and the clifftop environment, the sense of place, the rural landscape that surrounds it. I've been a keen surfer for my whole life. I've surfed Bells since my teens when I got my driver's license, and could head there from the Bellarine Peninsula. So I've got a long association with Bells. I also spent 10 years or almost 10 years working at the Great Ocean Road Coast Committee. So I've got a lot of experience in coastal management, although Gork didn't manage Bells Beach. But it's absolutely essential that Bells Beach is protected for what it is. It's a place of Aboriginal heritage significance. It's a place of social heritage significance as the site of the world's oldest surfing comp. It has competitive surfing significance. It has massive grassroots surfing significance. And it's really been the community to this point that's cared for Bells Beach through Surfers Appreciating Natural Environment, Surfrider Foundation, other groups like that. Massive respect to them for the preservation work that they've done and the restoration work. And I just think we need to build on that legacy, keep Bells there for future generations and touch it very, very lightly, and certainly don't let commercialisation spoil it.
Thank you very much, Mike. Next candidate is Libby Stapleton.
Thanks, Mitchell. I think Mike's reflected exactly what needs to happen at Bells, which is nothing. It needs to be preserved and protected. It is an area of cultural and environmental significance. And, I too have a long connection with Bells. I spent my teenage years camping at Torquay, and, Bells was a favourite spot to hang out. So I've seen the change that's sort of come, and I think that the community has done a really great job of fighting and protecting the sacred space that Bells is. There's obviously a lot of passion for Bells, and it was really encouraging to see that recently the support for, or the WSL support for the proposed viewing platform was withdrawn. I strongly oppose any unnecessary sort of structural development around Bells. And I think it's really important that we monitor and manage the number of visitors that come to Bells. And with the newly formed Great Ocean Road Coastal and Parks Authority, that as council, we're very involved in advocating and protecting Bells. I think it's the only beach that probably comes under council's jurisdiction in the region at the moment. And that in itself means that we have a real responsibility to the entire community, not just the people in Bells, but it's an icon in the Surf Coast Shire. And I would certainly be standing as a councillor that protects and preserves it, not just for the current generation, but for all of those to come.
Thanks, Libby. Up next is Tony Revel.
Thank you. Look, when we talk about Bells Beach, the two words that always come to mind are protection and preservation. The appeal of Bells Beach is its relatively natural environment, and that's what we have to respect. Because council has paused the discussion around the permanent walkway, and that's completely appropriate. My view is that what we should have with Bells is minimal built infrastructure, and that's so from my perspective, the permanent walkway is not something that's required. So let's recognise Bells for what it is, and recognise that people come to our surf coast and our beaches because they are relatively natural in their environment. So I think council at the moment, or the previous council rather, was at the end of that quite unanimous in the decision to offer more protection than might have previously been indicated.
Thank you very much for that, Tony. Up next, Raylene Fordham.
Yeah, look, I agree with the sentiments from the candidates completely. At the end of the day, two key words, what did Tony say? Preservation and protection. Bells is an icon, and you know what? It needs to remain an icon and be what it is for future generations. So I guess we've got to be mindful of pressures. We have to be, as Libby said, just really strong advocates when it comes to the new authority and the protections around Bells. Minimal built form, absolutely, Tony. So, you know, my place is the same as exactly what Mike Bobsler said. Do nothing. Like, Bells is what Bells is because it's special, because it's Bells. So please do nothing to it.
Thank you, Raylene. And Liz Wood.
Well, I think we've got overwhelming sort of agreement going on here. A friend of mine, Gail Cooper, was the first Australian women's surf champion at Bells Beach in 1961, and she wore a woolen jumper to achieve that championship. Bells Beach is the most iconic surf location probably in Australia. Bells Beach has an approved coastal management plan, which was done by the state government in 2015. It's a 10-year plan. And there are two key principles, which I'm sure we'll all be pleased to hear about. And those principles are respect and protect. We need to work with the Bells Beach Committee and the local community to achieve their wishes, which is to sort of manage access, protect the bushland, respect the coastline. It's a precious place, and we are merely stewards of that place. So I agree with the rest of the panel on this. Thanks.
Thanks for that, Liz. The next question comes in from Gary, and he says, what are your ideas for how the Surf Coast can recover from COVID-19? And Tony, you're up first.
Thank you. Well, look, there are some significant challenges. I think I alluded to those in my opening statement. We, as a statistical region, are more than 50% reliant on JobKeeper for businesses at the moment. That puts us in something like the top 10 towns in Australia, and it's because we are so reliant on our visitor economy. So the impact of the visitor economy was driven by a lack of tourism and so on. It flows on to have social consequences as well. So in terms of what we need to do with recovery, I think that within the community, and we've got a very good community that is doing a lot in terms of supporting people through the process, socially and welfare needs and the like. And council will need to play a role of funding that to a significant degree, I would think, for some time. But the key economic driver for us, of course, is the visitor economy, and on that we need to have programs that facilitate, encourage, and support appropriate tourism, and that is tourism that is respectful of our fragile environment. It's tourism that is going to encourage people to get deeper into what we offer, spend more time here, and of course it means spend more money. and thereby providing the jobs and the opportunities that will support our businesses as JobKeeper winds down. But it is, I see COVID recovery as one of the most significant challenges for this council, and it's going to require efforts well beyond the time when we would say the health issue is past. It's a social and an economic issue.
Thanks, Tony. Liz Wood.
Thanks very much. I guess COVID-19 has highlighted how readily our lives and livelihoods can be disrupted. And the immediate challenge is to build back stronger and recover from this crisis. But it's also provided us with an opportunity to take a big breath and have a bit of a rethink and reset what we do, how we do it. And I'd like to congratulate the Surf Coast Shire actually in what they have been doing. They were very quick to react to COVID in March. They closed the council offices. They sent their staff home to work from home. They closed community buildings way before the City of Greater Geelong did. And I congratulate them for being so proactive. The other thing they did was they set up some community support networks, which I was part of with Tony and Libby in the Aries Inlet COVID Community Network. And that was a fantastic initiative. And I really think Surf Coast has done well. What we need to do coming out of this, I'm particularly concerned about young people. I think we need to be doing lots of work in the youth space, particularly around mental health, supporting young people to get back into community and get connected again to each other. And we also need to do that for all age groups in our community. It has hit everybody hard. Small business. I was shocked in talking to some of our small business owners that this is where council hasn't done so well. They haven't heard a thing from council. I would have thought one thing council could do would be to send a couple of officers walking down the Anglesea shops and talking to business owners. How can we help you? What can we do to help you get your business back up on its feet? And that's what I'll be advocating to do in the immediate. Those are the immediate priorities. Longer term, that requires a significant more thinking. Thanks.
Thanks, Liz. Raylene Fordham.
Well, I guess I'm the small business that's the person that is impacted 100% by what's happened from a business point of view, but also, from a heart point of view and from where I come from, where I live. Both of my businesses have been 100% impacted. So I don't have those businesses, unfortunately, at the moment. So this is a really key topic. And I think from my point of view, it's going to take a combined effort. Like, we're going to have to work together. It's going to take government, it's going to take business, and it's going to take community. COVID has really shown me and taught me the importance of being connected. And it's across business and community. You can see it, you can feel it. So the first thing for me as a priority would be the recruitment and the appointment of the new council CEO. That is a crucial step in setting us up for our future success or not. So that would be the first thing I would say. And I'm surprised to hear, Liz, that you feel that council hasn't engaged with business, because we've been on our community support meetings every 2 weeks for months now, and the leader of our business group is in on that. There's a couple of other small businesses that are in on those calls as well. Certainly the Regional Tourism Board has engaged with us quite actively. We've talked to the guys in the Economic Division. They brought out the $1 million grant so that you could apply for grants, and I know there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes. I've taken calls. We've found each other, like, so small businesses, the paddle boats and I have worked together to talk through every time there's an announcement, every time there's an offer of support. We've worked through it together to find whether it will work for us, won't work for us. Yes, I'm afraid. I'm not sure what the future holds, and it does scare me. But what I do know is that I don't believe in ever giving up. And I do believe that together we will come out of this. When we look back, all I really want to, really, I guess, think about is how well did we go? How did we go doing it together? And did we do it well? So I guess that's where I'm coming from. We just have to actively work at it. And I think it's going to take cross agencies to be able to do that.
Thank you very much, Raylene. Mike Bodsworth.
Thanks, everybody. Really great responses there. I'm interested in some of the ways in which Anglesea was really well placed when COVID came along. I know that, I sympathise with people like Raylene who've totally had the rug pulled out from under them. Some businesses have absolutely just been poleaxed by COVID, and there's nothing they can do about it. It's really just a matter of fate, and it's super tough to take that. And it's also very tough for the Melbourne people and people who are stuck in lockdown, who've got properties down here, who are just gagging for the opportunity to get back down here to the place they love, and they'll be contributing to the economy and that sort of thing. But it's been really interesting being heavily involved in mountain biking and chairing the Anglesea Bike Park Committee of Management, because the recreation and visitor options that allowed people to physically distance while still being active outdoors really came to the fore during COVID. And so things like trail running, cycling, mountain biking, bushwalking, we've had a cracking orchid season, so walking in nature and looking at those things. The COVID period has really highlighted how Anglesea and the Airies and the hinterland is a real natural playground for people. And I think that that's a good lesson to us as to something that we should look to enhance. Otherwise, council's agility, the ability to offer people options that they don't normally offer, maybe things like expanding footpath, alfresco cafe areas and things like that you can do relatively quickly, low risk. There's no permanent change. It's just a step towards helping people get back in business. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike. And Libby Stapleton.
Well, thanks, Mitchell. There are some really interesting responses there, and a range of responses. I think first and foremost, we need to make sure we've got a healthy community, and I think that the economic cost aside, which is obviously really significant, but the economic stuff can be managed, and we can work with business and we can support business. But unless we're working together to create a healthy and connected community, we're not going to overcome this. So I would be certainly working with local health services to monitor and support ongoing health programs where we do have a local impact. I think Mike's point about, being outdoors and enjoying the natural environment has been a real positive that's come out of COVID. And for me and my family, on a personal note, we've really enjoyed the slower pace of life. And I think it's given families an opportunity to, yes, there's been stresses, but I think it's given us a chance to reconnect and think about our priorities. I've been directly impacted as a business as well. I run the Airies Inlet Market, and we haven't been able to operate that all year. And I know what's required to actually get a COVID-safe plan together that needs to be approved by council so that we can operate safely in the community. And it's not an easy thing to do. And I think we need to really be there to support small local businesses who are trying to re-establish themselves, but at the same time find that balance in our community to ensure that we are a healthy and connected community, and that we're supporting each other, obviously supporting business, but really supporting neighbours, taking time to move a little more slowly through the world, and stopping to have those conversations, to ask people around you, how are they doing and what can I do to help you?
Thank you very much. Sorry, Libby, you've run out of time on that one. But look, we've run out of time as well for any more questions, but we will move now to closing statements, which will give candidates the opportunity to tie up any loose ends or to touch on any subjects through questions. So again, 2 minutes for each of the candidates to make their closing statement. And when we run the shuffle, Liz Wood, you've been chosen first.
Thanks, Mitchell. And thanks again for this opportunity. It's been really terrific. 2020 has been a very disrupted year. It's been difficult, tragic, and tough for many people, and young and old. Alongside this, we've been able to be very thankful for the life that we have down here on the coast, and the environment has been an important part of it. And part of this has been appreciating the strength of community. We have some challenges ahead, and we've got to engage with the big picture. It's no longer business as usual. I see key areas for me are planning. I think the planning scheme needs to be beefed up a little bit. I think people need greater certainty, less grey areas. We need less wriggle room for planners in planning space. The Great Ocean Road Authority, Council needs to engage with the Great Ocean Road Authority that's been established to manage Crown land along our coastline. That is going to be quite significant. So we need to establish a good working relationship with that. Council declared a climate emergency. We need a climate emergency action plan. We need a high functioning council that is prepared to work together, that has good working relationships between council. And I would love the opportunity to be part of those good working relationships. And I think I can make a strong contribution. I've got the experience in council. I can hit the ground running. It's not a big learning curve for me in terms of the planning process. I get it. So a lot of people, it takes years to understand how the planning scheme works. And I've got that experience, and I can walk right into this role and be an effective contributor. And I want to safeguard the future for the Surf Coast.
Thanks, Liz. Just not hearing you, Tony.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it dropped out then.
Sorry, go ahead.
You got me now, thank you.
Yes.
Look, thanks, guys. We're very fortunate, I think, in this board, this election, to have 5 very good, active community people standing in the Anglesea ward. I think voters are going to make a decision based on an assessment of what the candidates stand for, firstly, and what is our ability to deliver. From my perspective, I standing on a platform of what I'd describe as being sensibly progressive in terms of balancing the social, environmental and the economic needs, and recognising that the three are very much related. There are some significant challenges ahead for council over the next 4 years, and that includes the economic and social challenges that are coming from COVID, particularly as JobKeeper's wound back. We talked about that earlier. There is an emerging need to better manage our visitor economy. We are looking at a visitor economy that's substantially changed, certainly with less international tourism likely for some time. We need to find ways to encourage visitors to get more deeply involved in our region, deeper into what we offer. And we need to be less reliant on summertime and the beaches in terms of what we're doing. We also have to make sure that the development that we allow does not become overdevelopment and impact our environment and our quality of life, because it is this natural environment that is so important to us being what we are. So both the natural and the constructed environment, we have to be very careful about it and apply significant weighting to the environmental concerns when it comes to making decisions. And bear in mind, in a council, you have to stand up and vote and make decisions. There is also financial challenges that are clear over the next 4 years. In this era of rate capping, the long-term financial outlook for council does indicate that delivering on our agenda is going to require some fairly astute financial management, and it's going to be decisions about not only what we choose to do, but what we choose not to do, recognising some difficult times ahead there. So I'm standing as an experienced and independent candidate, and one that will bring commercial experience to what we do, and in an environment that I think is going to become increasingly challenging over the next 4 years.
Tony, thank you. Sorry, your time has expired, but we'll go to Raylene.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for today. I really appreciated hearing all of your answers, and I look forward to working with you all, whether that's as a community member or as an elected councillor, and when that time comes later this year. Look, I think when I think about what's important from a councillor, you really need somebody that understands the protections and the planning that's in place currently, that is willing to strongly advocate to protect those planning schemes and why they were put there. Someone that's going to be able to understand the complexity with the new entity coming into it, so the Great Ocean Road Authority that's coming up, and somebody that will be on the ground, that will continue to inform and engage community around those key priorities and topics. So, having a team around you, making sure you're conversing with them, being willing to stand up. And I really hope that, my leadership style, which is very collaborative, I've got a background in governance. I've worked in corporate before, so I have a really broad experience of working across and with and for at both levels. So whether it's community, whether it's business. So I want to bring that role to my ability to deliver for you. So yeah, I think at the end of the day, we've got to think about how we're going to come out of COVID, what that will look like. And as I said earlier, for me, what's really important is that when we look back, I want to know that we did it well and that we did it together. So they are the things that are important to me. I agree with Tony, we've got a rate capped environment. That's going to be a challenge. We need to talk to the community about what key things are really important to them. So, so that we know what they don't want cut, because it is a bit of a challenge financially. We have to be a realist about that. So yeah, so thank you very much. I hope that I get to see you on the street, at socially distanced, of course. So feel free to say hello and give your concerns or bring your concerns to me. Thank you.
Thanks, Raylene. And Libby Stapleton.
Thanks, Mitchell. Well, I think one thing that's clear from this forum today is that we all do love where we live, and I think we all want to serve our communities well. I guess your job as the community members is to choose a candidate who you think has the skills and experience to be effective on council. I know that person is me. I know I have the personal attributes to get the job done. I'm hardworking, I'm committed. I'm a very authentic person. I care about people and the environment, and they are two things that will always come first for me in decision making. I'm very well connected to the community and in both towns. I don't see myself as an Aries candidate or an Anglesea candidate. I'm involved heavily as a volunteer and professionally in both communities. And I have the communication skills to ensure that I will be a strong voice at the council table. No doubt there are issues, and really complex and challenging issues that we will face as a council. Some of those are obvious to us now. We've talked about Eden today, and we've talked about COVID, and there will be things that we can plan for, but there are also things, that we can't plan for. And that's one thing COVID has taught us this year. We can plan for things like climate change and bushfire preparation. So I guess at the end of the day, we need to think about what kind of leaders do we need in our community who can manage regardless of what the issue is, who are going to be people that engage with our community, that are connected and open-minded and willing to really listen to what our community values and how we can then advocate for that around the council table. And I look forward to being that person for you.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, Mike Bodsworth.
Thanks, everybody. It has been a really great session. appreciated the opportunity to take part in it, and pay credit to the other candidates for putting their hands up, and also for the quality of the discussion today. Look, one of the biggest things to me is community empowerment. I think whoever ends up on council, hopefully I'm one of them, we've got a real job to do to restore community trust. Council has made some questionable decisions over recent years. There is a lot of pressure for development, and all of the candidates today have talked about planning and plans, and we have some excellent plans in this area. But over the past couple of years, I've been dismayed at the extent to which some plans are being shoved aside once vested interests come in and want to exploit the values that we have here. It's ironic to me that we have so many volunteer groups working to preserve the character of this coast, and yet it's so easy for those values to be exploited by development and diminish the values that volunteers have worked for decades to try and preserve. So that's something whoever ends up on council has to be extremely strong on, to stand by the plans that we have, which do a great job of taking vision that's been developed in partnership with the community and taking it all the way through to strategies and actions. And those things need to be stuck to. And in my time participating in the Anglesea Futures process, we've come to the point today where the community had to resort to a freedom of information action to obtain survey results that show a 70 and 80% community disapproval of the development proposals that are in today's plan. So something's wrong when that's happening, and we need stronger leadership that puts community first. Thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you very much, Mike. And I want to thank all the candidates today. It's always tough being the first forum, and especially doing it on Zoom in times of COVID-19. It's new to all of us. So you've all been great. And I think you've all set the benchmark for a collaborative forum. Hopefully we see those in some of the coming days that we have. So thank you to Libby Stapleton, Tony Revel, Raylene Fordham, Mike Bodsworth, and Liz Wood. And I'd also like to thank all the Pulse staff and volunteers who have helped behind the scenes to make these forums happen. Coming up now on the station, we've got 30 minutes of great music, and then we'll return a little bit later on with our Borough of Queenscliff Candidates Forum. So very much looking forward to seeing you all there. But for now, that's it from me.
Bye, everyone. See you.
Thanks all. Well done, Mitchell.
Thanks, Mitchell.
Thanks, Mitch.
See you guys.